And we have a pretty big development on the legal front over AR-15s because Judge Roger Benitez out of the U.S. District Court in California just officially ruled California's assault weapon ban unconstitutional this week. This is the second time that he's struck down their ban. The first time was before the Supreme Court's Bruin decision, but now this case was sent back to him because of the Bruin decision, and he ruled
this was one of the cases
way.
the Supreme Court granted, vacated, and remanded, right? And then the Ninth Circuit, instead of deciding it themselves as it was sent back to them, they decided to send it all the way back down to the district judge who wrote the original ruling. And frankly, what sure seems like a bit of strategic litigating, a delay tactic, essentially.
Right.
Because Benitez's first ruling on this is very similar to this ruling as well. And it's exactly what people expected he was going to write. And there really wasn't any practical need. Look, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what's in the minds of the judges at the Ninth Circuit, but it's very clearly been a very a circuit that's very hostile to rulings against any kind of gun law, really. They often take these cases en banc, even though going en banc is a very rare phenomenon generally. Basically, all of the pro-gun rulings that have come out of the Ninth Circuit have gone en banc and been overturned at that point. And this is another way that justices who don't like the Bruin decision or the Heller decision that expanded the court's understanding of Second Amendment protections, this is another way for them to sort of resist that, in a sense, by making everything take as long as possible to get through. And you've seen this in a number of cases. We haven't had a circuit court level ruling on an assault weapons ban since Bruin, even though the court sent two of them back down and is clearly interested in this topic. Because the Fourth Circuit is also relitigating. They didn't do this. They didn't send it all the way back down to the district judge, but they did. They are just kind of sitting after arguments. I think it's one of the longest.
It's been 10 months
delayed. Decisions that we've seen. So that's first point there. Like, this is the reason that Benitez is even ruling on this again is because I think the majority on the Ninth Circuit don't want the inevitable to happen, which is that they'll have to decide this case and risk being appealed to the Supreme Court and losing.
Right.
So, that's an interesting sort of flavor to this. These are one of those stories where it's like, this is a big ruling, but within the context, it also is, it's mainly the practical outcome of it, the main practical outcome, because Benitez did issue a 10-day stay pending appeal. We all expect that the DOJ will appeal this decision and that the Ninth Circuit will take this case probably en banc if they have to, depending on what probably the appeals panel does. But because last time the appeals panel agreed with Benitez, if I remember correctly. So, if that happens again, then the court would probably take it en banc and then overturn Benitez and uphold the law would be my guess. We will have to see. We don't know. It's for sure, but that's what happened last time. And I don't see any indication that the Ninth Circuit judges who upheld the law previously have changed their mind in any way. But it's so in a sense, like, there's not a lot of practical effect of this ruling beyond moving it further along. But that's what gun rights advocates need to do if they want to win this case. They got to move it. It has to move. And so it just did move. And now we wait and see what the Supreme Court does, if anything, with this, because who knows?
Right. And that's, to your point, that is the big deal about this, because one, it's one of the first, if not the first, I think it's one of the first at least, to actually reach merits on an assault weapons ban case. We've seen a ton of obviously preliminary injunction opinions after Bruin, but this is the first to actually do a final, this is unconstitutional on the merits. And so you have this going up, as you said, back up to the Ninth Circuit on the West Coast. We have obviously the Fourth Circuit decision that, who knows when that's going to happen. We have a Seventh Circuit case awaiting review on Illinois' ban. Yep. And so this is exactly the situation, to your point, that gun rights advocates would need if they want eventual Supreme Court review on this very question, is all the various circuit splits, however they may rule, actually issuing opinions on this, which we haven't had to this point after Bruin, which could very well lead to eventual Supreme Court oversight. So,
and this is where all the energy was in the gun rights movement after Bruin. This is what people expected the fallout to be of Bruin, is that assault weapons bans, magazine limits, handgun rosters, things like that were going to be done away with. And mostly what we've seen the courts make news on to this point, you have seen some of those, right? You've seen preliminary injunctions, but you've mostly seen courts go both ways on those questions at the lower levels, right? They're sort of working out the two competing methods for applying Bruin, one that strikes down laws and one that upholds them, basically. But and the court's going to have to decide one way or the other on those things. Eventually, it sure seems like, despite the harsh tone it took with lower courts over how they treated Heller, it does not appear to be a big sea change in how they're treating Bruin, where you're basically getting courts who think it will allow you to uphold most any law. And that's not across the board. You've seen some judges appointed by Biden or Obama rule against certain gun restrictions because of the Bruin standards. But in a lot of the high profile cases, you've seen what you saw before, which is Republican appointed judges strike down gun restrictions while Democrat appointed ones uphold them. Like I said, there's some variation there. It's not completely black and white, but it's not that far off from what we were seeing before Bruin happened either. So, and so the court's going to have to decide this, but a lot of these sort of big ticket cases about all the most controversial gun policies in the country, assault weapons bans and magazine limits and things of that nature, they've kind of taken a backseat to a lot of these criminal cases where the argument is over who can be restricted from owning guns and what kind of restrictions, who can gun restrictions apply to, what kinds of people, whether you've been convicted of a nonviolent felony, or if you used marijuana or something like that. And what kind of restrictions can be applied to those people? Can you have a lifetime ban, for instance? Can you have a ban after minimal due process on, a temporary ban on owning guns? Those are the sorts of things that have actually gotten the most traction in courts and moved the furthest. And, the court is taking them up right now with the domestic violence restraining order case. But that's just the nature of landmark rulings. Everyone comes in with the context of this ruling happened because the gun rights group pushed for it, and the movement generally pushed for these rulings over the years. But that ruling is going to have all kinds of effects that you don't necessarily foresee, because it applies to anyone caught up in the federal court systems, and really the state court systems as well. So that's why a lot of these cases that are moving faster than the assault weapons ban cases are public defenders, right? Just asserting Bruin as a defense in a lot of these cases, and oftentimes winning, So it's been interesting. But to bring it back to the main story, I was a lot of those people who told me they don't just want guns, that they want guns that they think are capable of helping them repel an attack like what they saw in Israel. They wanted ARs, and they were in California. I think 3 of the people I spoke with were in California, and they all brought up AR-15s. And one of the trainers that I spoke with, he talked about how multiple people have called him about buying an AR-15 in California since then. So nothing has changed for them practically at this point, but I do think it speaks to the importance of this sort of case and how many people are watching it closely, especially in the Jewish community right now.